Hey y'all, my name is Cassie and I am the creator of Pieces of Scrap, and in today's video we're going to be doing another Instagram free amigurumi pattern review. And these are videos in which I take patterns that I find on Instagram that either I find myself or my followers suggest to me, and I review them so that you can determine if you want to try that pattern in the future. And before we get started, I always like to get into how I rate these patterns. So number one is, would I use the pattern again? And this really determines if it is a market prep pattern or not, if it's quick and easy to go through, or if I have a lot of problems trying to work through that pattern. Number two is, can I understand the pattern easily? And that comes down to the way the pattern is written, if there are a lot of notes to explain complicated things that you don't see in a lot of beginner-friendly patterns, if the pattern is easy for a beginner to understand versus a intermediate to advanced crocheter to understand, and that all boils down to how it is written, if it's thoroughly explained, if there are pictures, diagrams, those sort of things that help you get through the pattern and understand what you're supposed to be doing. And then finally, number three is, do I like the final product? And that is very straightforward. Do I like what it looks like when it's finished? So the first pattern that I reviewed is a follower suggestion. This pattern is by Ghosty Ollie Crochet. It is a baby Cthulhu pattern. And if you don't know what Cthulhu is, it's basically just like this mystical fictional character. It's like this dark sea lord underwater thing that, you know, it's just an underwater sea creature that is fictional and it's not real, and it's also supposed to be scary and kind of look like an octopus. Anyway, this pattern was suggested by the Crochet Capybara, so thank you so much for suggesting this for me. I ended up only making one of them. Typically when I review patterns, I like to make more than one, but I think I got the gist of this pattern the first time around. I didn't have a lot of difficulties, so I ended up only making one. This pattern took me 44 minutes to make. Its tentacles are no-sew. You create them by chaining off the body and then single crocheting, half double crocheting, you can't quite remember, back up the tentacle into the face. And it's like 2 rows, I think, of these tentacles, and you kind of put them in between each other and on the second row. In rows 10 and 11, which is where you work into the tentacles, it doesn't really say in the pattern itself whether you're supposed to work into the tentacles themselves or if you work around them. I think I ended up working around them, because if I were to work directly into the tentacles, I ended up with too many stitches at the end of the row. So I opted for working around them and ignoring placing stitches into the tentacles themselves, and it looks like it came out correctly based on, there's no gaps here and it looks right, and I had the right number of stitches when I did that. I noticed in the pattern that it's also missing row 11, and I ended up just adding another row of single crochets, no increases, no decreases, instead of skipping that row. However, when I looked at the Instagram pattern and I noticed in the comment section somebody had pointed out that row 11 was missing, and they said that row 12 is actually supposed to be row 11, so mine might be a little bit taller than hers is supposed to be. I think this pattern can definitely be no-sew. You could work this pattern from the bottom of the body up and then work decreases where the neck is supposed to be and then increase where the head starts. That would save some time. It would also, you know, be a little bit easier. I think me especially, I struggle with sewing heads onto bodies, and they typically seem like they're not as sturdy as they would be if it was a no-sew pattern. And of course, it's no surprise to anybody that I will also always point out that a pattern can be no-sew if it can be, and this is one of those patterns that could definitely benefit from being no-sew. It would save a little bit more time going back to the pattern in the future. From my perspective, I probably won't make this pattern again in the future. I'm not a huge fan of like the Cthulhu fandom, and I don't think it is something that's super popular either. So I don't see a lot of people, especially in my area. I live in East Texas, and a lot of people a lot of parents specifically shy away from things like this where they're like, oh, that looks like a Pokemon, or it looks like some fictional character that I'm not familiar with, and then they are less likely to buy a product. So I definitely will not be making this in the future. I really like how it turned out. It makes a cute little Cthulhu. I just don't see myself making this in the future. But anyway, I would rate this pattern 3.5 stars out of 5. Next pattern that I reviewed is also a follower suggestion. It is a pattern by Clay Merrily, and it was suggested to me by Amigurumi. And these are these cute little Perry the Platypus, little tiny baby guys, and they're just so cute. I love how they turned out. They work up very quickly in 37 minutes. And I think it was just a lot of pieces. However, I really like the pattern, and the pieces are small enough that it's fine that there's a lot of pieces, if that makes sense. I mean, like typically, if I'm working on a pattern that has a lot of sewing and the pieces are very big, so like for example, like a cow or a bunny or something like that, where you have a lot of arms and legs and tail, ears, horns, whatever, muzzles, stuff like that. Sewing patterns like that are really intensive because not only do you have to make the body and the head of the plushie, but you also have to make all these big pieces that you also have to attach. But for this guy, these are all really small pieces that sew on fairly easy. You're not worried about trying to position them correctly because they're not like cumbersome to hold. And so I didn't mind having to sew all these pieces on. I think it's really cute and it was really easy to place them and everything. So I'm not super offended that this is not a no-sew pattern. The pattern included a really great tip for the beak here. So the beak is just a magic ring that you don't close. So it comes out more like a half circle shape instead of a circle. So because of that, you end up embroidering this line above the beak so that it doesn't look just like a flat piece on the face. It looks like it's kind of curved up towards the face, and I think that adds a lot of character and it looks a lot better than it would if it was not embroidered on there. I think the hat could definitely be part of a way to make this no-sew if you were to leave back loops open or front loops open on the last round of the head and then crochet the hat directly onto those back or front loops, and then that would be one less piece that you have to crochet separately and sew on later. One other thing about the hat that I noticed was there's no note about adding stuffing to it, so I was worried that it would cave in, so I added a tiny bit of stuffing to the hat so that when you push on it, it doesn't cave in. It's just a little squishy. So yeah, I really enjoyed this pattern and I would definitely see myself making it again. I think Perry the Platypus is something that people really like and it's super cute. And I could also see myself making this in the future without the hats, and then they could just be little platypus guys and people would like those as well. So I would rate this pattern 4 stars out of 5. So we're finished with follower suggestions now. If you want to suggest a pattern for me to review in the future, make sure you follow me on Instagram, and you can either DM me patterns, tag me in the comments of those patterns. However you want to send me those suggestions, you can do that on my Instagram, and my Instagram is pieces_of_scrap, and you can find me on Instagram. So the next pattern is these cute little Fruit Friend keychains by Minnie's Crochet Friends, and all of these are made in under 15 minutes. I think the longest one is this pineapple, and then the strawberry is the next longest, and then this blueberry. The blueberry is the least amount of time. It is 10 minutes. Very quick and easy patterns, and they make these adorable tiny little keychains. I didn't really have any problems with this pattern at all. The only thing of note is that once you're finishing up the pattern on each of these, you crochet into the back loops only or the front loops only, I can't remember, to create the top of the fruit, and that's just so that you can sew into the back loops or front loops or whichever it was, so that you can close it off and you get like kind of a seamless top there. So my only comment about that is it was kind of difficult to find those back loops, and it's just because when you're finishing off each of these, you create like leaves, or you create like this little ridge here on the top of the blueberry, and it's difficult to see in that tiny amount of space that you have left at the top where you're supposed to sew into. So for these two specifically, I think I just ended up placing my embroidery needle wherever I could in order to sew them closed, and yeah, that was my only complaint. But these are super quick and easy, and I ended up making 2 sets of each of them, so I've got quite a few of these, and I think these will be a big hit at my markets. They are very quick to make, so they'll be pretty cheap, and I think people will enjoy having little fruit keychains with like little faces on them. They're really cute, and I would rate this pattern 4.5 stars out of 5. The next pattern that I reviewed is kind of a labor-intensive pattern. It is Baby Nessie by Cozy Wonders Crochet, and I ended up making 3 of them. I just love how cute this pattern comes out, and I have an inkling that people will really enjoy making or buying this pattern from my markets. So I made 3 here. I made this blue one with the kind of like sea colored spine and little gills, and then I made a pink one with light pink scales and gills, and then I made this mint green one with the sea colored gills and spine again. And each of them have the sparkly pretty eyes. So we've got green eyes on the green one, pink eyes on this pink one, and then I think I put like orangey yellow eyes on this blue one, and they all came out so cute. So there they are. Baby Nessie takes 1 hour and 10 minutes to make, so it's fairly quick for the amount of sewing and pieces that you have to make. The gills and spine are crocheted directly into the body. You leave the back loops open on the head to make these gills directly onto the body. You make the body from tail to neck, and the head is also made separately. And then the fins are all made separately. It's the same pattern for every single fin, and then you just sew them onto the body. You also do some embroidery around the eyes to make kind of like eyelashes, which is really cute. And yeah, I really enjoyed making this pattern. There was an error that I ran into right away. So for the head, it is worked with a chain, and then you go around the chain instead of making a magic ring. So you start over here on the nose and you chain 4. However, the error here was that you should actually chain 5 based on the amount of stitches you are placing in the round. With the chain 4, you would have to work into the chain that you have on your hook when you turn, and that is just not possible. So I recommend fixing that so it says chain 5 instead of chain 4, so that you can work into the second chain from the hook instead of the first chain that is currently on the hook. I wish that the head frills, these little gills on the side of the head, had better instructions on how to make them. It really just says on either side of the head, do this, and my issue with that is like trying to figure out how high on the head I should place them. So I ended up relying on looking at the picture a lot, and the picture was not on the same page, so then you have to go to the front page of the pattern and look at the picture and determine where these frills were going to be. And the first time that I did it, I ended up just skewering a knitting needle through the head so that I knew on either side where I was supposed to start, so that my frills would be symmetrical. And then what I did for every one that I made after that is I actually placed a stitch marker on either side of the head in the same spot so that I knew where the top of the frills would need to be. Anyway, I really liked making this pattern. I think it'll be very popular at markets. I wish it was a little bit faster of a make, but I'm not sure how you can make these fins no sew, and I'm not really sure how you would go about making the head no sew. But anyway, I think it is a good pattern, and I really like how it comes out, and they're just so cute. I will be making more for markets in the future, and I would rate this 4 stars out of 5. The next pattern that I reviewed is a collaboration pattern from Crochet. Healy inspired and Gwenny's crochet, and it is this cute little giraffe popper guy. It is completely no-sew. You work from the head down to the feet, and then later you crochet this tail directly into the body, and then all of these little spots on the giraffe are embroidered on later. This pattern takes 50 minutes to make, and I think the biggest problem I have with this guy is just the head. It doesn't really want to stay upright. Even when it's like a popper like this, like when it's squished down, it really wants to like topple over, and it doesn't look really right when it's popped down like this. It looks like the head looks a little misshapen, which I'm kind of sad about. It kind of works like a bobblehead though. I think that's something that is really cute. However, I'm just worried that people won't really like this because of how unstable the head is when you pop it, because you know, in the pictures and when it's like standing upright like this, you're like, oh, that's so cute and that's so unique that it's a popper for a giraffe, because you know, normally their necks are really long like that. However, it just doesn't really want to stay upright. So that's kind of a con of this pattern. If I was to solve this in any way, I think I would just add more stuffing, like add a little bit of stuffing into the neck. However, I think if you add any stuffing to the neck whatsoever, it might cause the popper to not work correctly. So that is the downside of it. For the leg bobbles, I had to kind of place them weird. And that's really my only real note about the pattern itself. The pattern tells you to work the bobble stitches every like 4 stitches or something like that. And if I were to do that, it would place a bobble here, and then a bobble here and a bobble here, and then the orientation of where the head is and the leg is would not make a lot of sense. So I ended up placing my last bobble into the first stitch of the following round that you're supposed to put the bobbles in, which was a little bit of a problem, and I kind of wish I didn't have to do that. It kind of is reminiscent of the last time I did a giraffe pattern, and the bobbles were on such a tight spiral because of the magic ring that they were like higher on one side than the other. Now that I look at it, they are definitely closer on one side than they are on the other. They're closer on this side than they are on this side, and I think it's just because of, you know, the way that I placed them, but I don't know if there was a better way to place them. So yeah, I like this pattern, but I don't understand why some things are placed the way that they are, and I kind of wish there was a way to make the head less wobbly and more popper, and that it wouldn't like slump over like this and be like a sad disabled giraffe when it has the popper up. Kind of defeats the purpose of the popper, if you ask me. It still makes a cute giraffe, so I would rate this pattern 3.5 stars out of 5. And finally, the last pattern that I tested for this video is the Sleepy Panda by Coco Crochets. It is a pattern that has a lot of parts, unfortunately, but it is pretty cute when it's finished. It's just kind of like laying and being lazy, and it's just so cute. I think there are a few parts to this pattern that could become a no-sew bit if you were to rework the pattern. For example, the front arms could be crocheted directly into the round if you made them before finishing the body, and I also think that this tail on the back could be a bobble stitch. In addition, the muzzle is something that could also just be built into the pattern, the body itself, because the muzzle is made separately, and something I didn't expect that either. So when I was making the pattern, I added a safety nose underneath where this muzzle is. I couldn't remove it once I realized that there is a muzzle piece that's supposed to go over that. So I ended up just putting it on top of that safety nose and sewing it into the head. And I kind of just wish that the muzzle itself was just a round, and then you increase off of that round to create this head shape. It would be really, really easy to implement that, and it wouldn't cause a lot of issue in the pattern itself. It would be one less thing you have to crochet and sew on as well. In the assembly instructions, I wish there were instructions on how many stitches were in between the arms, the legs, and where you're placing the tail, the ears, and the muzzle. There's like no instruction at all. It just tells you which round to place them on, not how many stitches are in between. So you really have to rely on the photos in placing where you're going to sew on your arms, your ears, your muzzle, and your tail and your back legs. So that is something that I was not a huge fan of. So overall, I think this pattern is really cute, but I don't really see myself using this pattern in the future unless I have commissions for it, just because of how much sewing is involved and how many pieces there are. So I would rate this pattern 3 stars out of 5. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below what patterns you want to see me do in the future. I think in a future video, I might be doing one that isn't amigurumi. I'll be doing a pattern review video for free Instagram patterns for like miscellaneous things that are not amigurumi. So not plushies, maybe some like coasters, bookmarks, stuff like that. I see a lot of patterns for those things out there, and I'm really interested in trying them and maybe adding them to my booth to see if people would be interested in them. Specifically, I saw these coasters and somebody recommended them to me too. These coasters that when you like put them away, they look like a little bouquet of flowers, and they have like a little basket that you crochet that you put them into, and I just think that's so cute and I want to do those. So maybe the next pattern review video will be non-amigurumi focused, and I hope you guys are okay with that. If you are, make sure you send me some patterns that you think would work well in that video, and I will try my best to make those patterns for you so you have some notes about how I feel about them, and see if you want to make them for yourself in the future. If you want to see more content from me in the future, I not only do amigurumi pattern reviews, but I also do crochet kit reviews, I do vlogs, and I do market recaps, market prep videos, stuff like that for you to crochet to and kind of just hang out and feel like you're hanging out with a friend while you're crocheting or making whatever it is you're making. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon if you want to know and be notified whenever I have a video that comes out. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!